All right. Welcome everybody to the second transmission of the coup d'etat of boxing, a brand new weekly boxing podcast that is hosted by myself, Corruption in Boxing, and my co-conspirator, Official Scorecard. Official, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Hello, Corruption. Ready to start the show. Can't wait for it.
It's amazing how quickly a week goes past, eh?
Sorry, again, please.
It's amazing just how quickly a week passes when you're now constrained to a weekly schedule for doing these podcasts.
Yeah.
So the coup d'etat of boxing, represents a sort of contemporary approach on an old classical sport that we savor and desire and sort of pretty much obsessed, fixated with. But as we expressed in the first show, we're taking a purist approach in analyzing critical issues within boxing and fighters that may not be acknowledged, and certainly weight divisions that are clearly that have an abundance of talent that are just overlooked, and it's debilitating from that sense. So we're here, to showcase those sort of fighters and analyze their technical ability, really critiquing the interactions of the fighters in the ring, and how they will progress over their careers. Generally, good young fighters as well, so we can monitor their career and at the same time, change our opinions on the fighters, etc. So, yeah, we're about depth, we're about detail, we're about getting scientific, we're about a futuristic approach as well. So, hope the first show appealed to some of you purists out there who were remonstrating with us for so long to try and put together a project. So hopefully it fills the void out there, and it can get you, because official, the way somebody was saying to me, well, what does the coup d'etat represent? And I said to them, I said, look, think of it this way: it's official and myself in a bar in maybe Paris or in Holland or in London Mayfair, at a nice bar. We're sat down on some leather Chesterfield couches. There's a table in front of us. I've got a bottle of Glenfarclas or a nice Macallan, 18 years single malt. Not sure what your proclivity is when it comes to drink, official, but something you like. What do you like?
Oh, right now I'm drinking Chivas.
Okay.
So
You've gone for a nice sort of blend. Nice blend. So you've got your Shivas, I've got my Macallan or a Glenfarclas, and we're just there, just talking boxing. And outside, there could be car bombs detonating. There could be corpses flying all over the place. And the commotion outside leads to people panicking and just sort of running outside from the bar. But me and you are just sat there, oblivious to the turbulence and the commotion both outside and inside. And we're there, just there, immersed in, a little bit drunk, but we're tipsy, but we're still focused, got our wits behind us, and we're there just talking boxing. And that's the way I look at the coup d'etat. Just conversation between two guys who love the sport.
couldn't say it any better, man. Yeah, so right before we begin, I would like to give shout outs to all the people watching us, all the people in the chat room saying great sports. He has a channel. Mark from Unrivaled Boxing Talking News, our friend, visit his channel as well. Then B Space, my brother from France, from living at the southwest of France. Then Shepherd, the Shepherd of Sons, big up. Duck.
Just want to say
Yep.
big shout out to those guys, Shepherd of Sons in particular, who's always supported, my work online. Every stream I've gone to, he's always been really supporting, really asking me to come on and do shows and get more active. So a big shout out to Shepherd of Sons.
Yeah, absolutely. And who else is there? If I'm not wrong, this is the first time I'm seeing, sorry if I'm butchering your name, THSMT22. He's looking forward to another great show. So thank you a lot. I hope you're going to enjoy it. And The other people we know as well: Big Dan, 8 Sins, Triple JJJ. Yeah, the Dale from Blue Collar Sports TV visit this channel as well.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Hashman Boxing. Yeah, just one last thing before we go right in. Uh, Doc was asking if we are doing, if we would have callers. Well, not until we set up a nice Patreon and PayPal page for this show. Not before that, but Doc, we know very well that you're extremely knowledgeable when it comes to boxing, and I don't know, give us, let us know if you would like to talk with us, because I was saying it was a shame you don't have a channel. Who else is there? Okay, so I think we're all set. Corruption.
Okay. Now, the agenda for today, and in a way, it kind of is a bit of a sort of a sacrificial sin against our modus operandi, because we didn't want to be too digressed in the politics and some of the nasty side that rears in boxing. But it is prize fighting, and the magnitudes of monies that are involved. It is inevitable that there's going to be legal posturing, altercations between fighters and promoters and television networks. That is inevitable, and we saw that manifest this week. And that's where we're going to start off the show. The reason being, there's a lot of disinformation regarding the federal complaint that Saul Canelo Alvarez's legal representatives had submitted this week. It is a convoluted subject. So it's the talk this week is more on, clarification, trying to understand exactly the implications of the lawsuit, the parties that are involved, and the adjudication as well, which was reached on Friday. So the lawsuit, it was a federal complaint that was submitted by the Maloney Group, who represent Saul Alvarez, and it was submitted on Tuesday at a central Californian court. And the first round of the hearing, where Canelo and his representatives presented the evidence. Now, the complaint didn't have any supporting documentation, nor was there a legal contract attached, which isn't surprising, but we'll. Now, the lawsuit itself was filed against Oscar De La Hoya, Golden Boy Promotions, and DAZN North America. So 3 separate entities. And what the complaint is obviously for breach of contract, which was instigated on 2 fronts. Saul Alvarez and his promoter Golden Boy Promotions had proposed a fight to DAZN to fight for a vacant WBC belt, which was declined by DAZN, and I think correctly so as well. But in view of the economic implications of the pandemic, and the fact that promoters are now either streaming fights through a contracted app that they have, or just putting on a standard pay-per-view without gate receipts. So it's impacted a lot of the promoters and television networks as well, who've had to make a number of redundancies and rescinding their budgets as well. So the remuneration for the fighters has depreciated, and Golden Boy Promotions have expressed that Canelo's next fight on DAZN, it will be for a significantly reduced amount. And Canelo Alvarez vehemently disagreed with that and hence has submitted this lawsuit for breach of contract. Now, DAZN's legal agreement is with Golden Boy Promotions. There isn't a separate contract that DAZN has with Canelo Alvarez. So Canelo Alvarez's appearances on the DAZN network, any fights that are completed as part of his 11-fight deal, the maturity value is $365 million. So Canelo did not receive a copy of the legal agreement, nor did DAZN and Oscar De La Hoya supply him with a copy. Canelo has expressed on numerous occasions for a copy of this agreement, and it has been rejected by both DAZN and Golden Pro Promotions. That's Canelo's interpretation. Now, we don't know it from DAZN side at the moment, or whether Oscar has given him some sort of a redacted copy or whatever. We don't really know that. It could be possible, but Canelo claims he's just oblivious to it. So, okay. So the contract. So, as part of the agreement, Oscar De La Hoya is personally sort of indemnified within the lawsuit because Oscar De La Hoya personally guaranteed Golden Boy Promotions liability for the entire $365 million. Now, the residual being $280 million. So Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy Promotions are fully accountable for the outstanding liability. So Canelo Alvarez is now seeking he's seeking not only punitive damages, not only for the residual amount of $280 million, but he's also seeking for an extrication from the legal agreement, so from the contract. Canelo, it sounds like to me, official, he's under the assumption he's actually playing poker. He's speculating on the terms and conditions without even being fully conversant with what they stipulate, and that's a dangerous proposition. So Canelo's lawsuit is almost implying that the remuneration of the contract was an equal split of the 365 million over 11 fights. So it wasn't correlated on the size of the fight and the revenue that can be accrued from each individual fight, because it's going to be different. If you're fighting Rocky Fielding, the not only the gate receipts, but the number of potential people that have subscribed to DAZN is not going to be as high as if Canelo is fighting maybe even a Danny Jacobs or somebody like that, even another fight with Gennady Golovkin. So it's not just a homogeneous calculation. It's just not an equal split. But that's what Canelo is thinking. So if Golden Boy Promotions, who pay Canelo Alvarez, DAZN do not. It is Golden Boy who pay him. The initial receipt goes from DAZN to Golden Boy, and then Golden Boy, because their contract is not only specifically with Canelo Alvarez, is for a number of fighters and dates. So they'll pay him an entire sum, and then Golden Boy will obviously divide with what a proportion, and then split the money, and then subsequently, tabulate that to their fighters in accordance to the individual agreement that the fighters has with Golden Boy. So Canelo clearly has an agreement directly with Golden Boy Promotions. So Alvarez is assuming, that the pizza's got to be sliced equally over 11 slices. So if he's not getting his 30-odd million, then Golden Boy are in breach of contract, and hence prompting this lawsuit. We don't know what that is at the moment. It's unclear. eventually, Golden Boy will, once they present their evidence, I'm sure Oscar de la Hoya's deposition will be for the agreement to be part of the deposition, and therefore we'll finally understand what exactly the terms and conditions are of the agreement. So at the moment, it's a very bold motion lawsuit that they filed, because one thing Canelo's attorneys have done is that they've actually listed all of the defendants as part of Canelo's plaintiff. So they've listed DAZN, all of DAZN's entities, as well as Golden Boy and Oscar de la Hoya as the co-defendants. Now, the first round of the hearing actually took place on the same week, on this past Friday, and the judge had dismissed the lawsuit on the grounds of ownership and citizenship, because the judge is not clear regarding the ownership status and the citizenship specifically of DAZN. The Maloney Group had implied that all of the co-defendants were in fact corporations, when they're not. Golden Boy Promotions is a limited liability company, as is, let me just find it. Two of DAZN's entities are limited liability corporations, but two of DAZN Media and DAZN USA are also incorporated. Now, DAZN didn't start out as a legal entity. It was a technological application that was developed by Perform Investments, which, just to confuse matters even more, is a private limited company. Perform Investments, they weren't originally a private company either. They were listed on the stock exchange in London. After they had developed the DAZN application, Access Industries, just to bring another entity in, they're in fact the UBO, which is the ultimate beneficial owner, owned by St. Leonard Blavatnik, who's a Ukrainian but is a resident both in London and in the United States. Access Industries purchased Perform Media for around 768 million, and its company was restructured. The shareholdings were transferred into private ownership. So Perform Media is a private limited company. So the judge is not clear as to whether the legal stipulation that involves DAZN is a matter that should be contested at a district court in the United Kingdom. So the judge is clearly unsure about the company structure, and it is a very complex structure. Without having a copy of the audited reports, in which we can have a look at the balance sheet to see whether it's consolidated between DAZN's limited liability companies that are in the United States, as well as the main holdings group, which is in the United States. Companies structure it in this way because under limited liability companies, all debts incurred remain the property of the company. They're not the responsibility of the owners and the shareholders. Now, we know that Golden Boy Promotions is a limited liability corporation, and that is the way they structured the company for two reasons: for tax reasons, because of the different tax states within the United States. So they have a separate holdings company which deals with the taxation, and any debt gets consolidated within their holdings company. So the actual liability company is free to conduct all of the deals, and they generally execute all of the payments from the limited liability company as well. So it's what we see in the business side as well. They'll set up shell corporations, they'll set up limited liability companies to buy companies as well. It's an investment tool, and that's the way Access Industries purchased Perform Media Group. It's just a risk mitigation exercise, just to ensure that when they purchase it, if the deal goes wrong, they can literally jettison the liability company as well. So if their main companies are listed, it just literally stops a run on those companies. So any reputational risk, etc., they just try and demarcate the company completely separately, so any sort of reputational risk doesn't infect shareholders investing in their main or the holdings company as well. So it's just prudent financial dealing, but quite complex from just just the ordinary citizen that is just having a look at the company and trying to understand it. Yeah, it tends to annoy, and it's not something really that I wanted to cover as well. But as I mentioned, I think it was necessary to do so. So to cut things short, in summary, now, quite a loosely prepared lawsuit by Canelo's attorneys, who themselves haven't really understood, the structure of DAZN as well. So that they have a little bit more time to recontest it or even appeal it on the grounds of the initial dismissal. And that's something I'm sure they're going to do in due course. So I don't know what you made of all of that, official, but quite a sort of a messy, sort of ugly situation. And what I will also say is that it's not 100% clear, but I believe Canelo's agreement with Golden Boy Promotions is third-party assignable. I don't see why it isn't, and surely it must be, because most boxing contracts that are structured in that way. Now, Golden Boy, it's Golden Boy's turnover is not substantial at all in sense of boxing. Canelo is very much the golden goose, so they're leveraged very highly with Canelo. So there's no way that Canelo would not have added an addendum to the existing contract with Canelo, with Saul Alvarez, to within the terms and conditions to stipulate that it is third party assignable, meaning that if Golden Boy is personally indemnified for any losses, and that's a realistic possibility, Oscar De La Hoya himself, his personal disposable income, his personal assets, his personal wealth, they could all be targeted as well. So from a financial and credit risk perspective, what he will do is that he has the option to sell the contract to any new parties that have just come in, or anybody that has the financial clout, that's got the money in escrow, so they can come in, they can purchase the contract. But Canelo Alvarez clearly does not want that. He doesn't want an ESPN or a Fox Sports to come in, purchase the contract, $280 million, because Canelo would still be required to fulfill the terms. He would still be required to fight whatever it is, 7, 8 more times under whatever television network that his new contract holder, has negotiated with. But Alvarez clearly doesn't want that. He, from my estimations, he's assuming that it's a breach of contract. He wants the 280 million. The terms will be scuppered. He'll be extricated from the contract, and then so Alvarez becomes a completely free agent. and he's therefore in prime position to negotiate it with any third party directly. I think he believes is a big enough entity to do so. From a free agent perspective, a little bit like a Floyd Mayweather. He's almost replicating that sort of model. Maybe, but I don't see it. I don't see a breach of contract. But it's hard to know without actually seeing the agreement. But if it's third party assignable, then the terms will have to be honored. I can't see any way in which those terms will be scuppered. But it all depends on the legal posturing. But the major television networks, they'll have legal teams that can uphold all of the clauses as well. They'll just the originators will just be transferred. It will just be from Golden Boy to Fox, the television network. So it's not a great deal of work. I've seen that kind of work in contracts before. So yeah, official. That's a little bit of a high level summary of the federal complaint stroke lawsuit. Any any thoughts from yourself?
Yes, so yeah, it's extremely complicated indeed, especially
Yeah.
for those of us who are not aware of all these things. We most of us do not have the background in those kinds of things. But anyways, I guess my question would be, so Canelo's lawyers basically describing Golden Boy and the DAZN as corporations instead of them being limited liability companies.
Yes.
Is, is it just would it be just a case of would it be just a simple technicality that they can you know that they could correct and resubmit their lawsuit, and how difficult would be for them to do it, because I'm wondering right now, um, can Golden Boy and the Zone be obligated, asked by a judge to to basically open up their books, or I don't know, not necessarily open up their books, but could they be asked by a judge to disclose those things, just for Canelo and his team to be allowed to see those little things, so they could correct those technicalities. And another thing is, that's my first question. The second question is, I know I was reading earlier today, because you and me talked just a bit about this Canelo DAZN Golden Boy situation. So what I did was I went to read about Manny Pacquiao's old promoter. Uh, I cannot recall his name right now, but the one that was his promoter right before Bob Father, Top Rank. Now I know it's quite different, because Canelo's contract is about an 11 fights deal, while Pacquiao, what he didn't like about his previous promoter before Bob Arum was that he was getting too much money just to offer Pacquiao, to give him to Golden Boy, and then Golden Boy would schedule fights against Barrera and other guys. So, for example, for the first Barrera fight, his Pacquiao's promoter was given around $700, and then out of all that money, Manny Pacquiao took just 300,000 and went on to fight on the zone. Sorry, not on the zones, on Golden Boy's card. So his promoter did not have to. He basically kept $400,000 for himself for just giving Manny Pacquiao to fight on Golden Boy's card, and the card was set up, and the fighters on the card were paid by Golden Boy. So he put $400,000 in his pocket. And I know that promoters are normally legally obligated to disclose the amount they're getting for the promoters, you know. And I've been wondering if it's the same thing with Canelo and Golden Boy, or it's something completely different.
Yes, it's basically it's all changed, even in the US with the Bank Secrecy Act, and all across Europe with the what they call it, the money laundering directives. So you've had the first, second, third, and now you've got the fourth and the fifth AMLD directives, and the actual disclosures would all have to be stipulated now, even the percentages, and it's even gone on to different sports with agents' fees, etc. In other sports, football in particular in Europe as well as in the UK, because there's been a tremendous amount of money laundering. But you know the way Pacquiao is always operated, official. There's been a hell of a lot of naivety with him because he just thinks that it all goes on honesty. You know, he believes that if if he's negotiated a sum and certainly a pay-per-view as well, flat fee on top of pay-per-view, then the source money, is sent to him. I don't know whether he actually looks at the breakdowns, looks at whatever percentages goes, because there's been his publicist has submitted so many times that he clearly has been underpaid over the years. Certainly when he was running into debts first of all, so it was almost like the promoters were paying him to bail him out of the debts that he had accrued through gambling and drinking in the early part. So he almost felt like an obligation, a sort of a friendship towards them. So it was built more on honesty. I don't know how much of it his accountants have actually sat down and calculated the exact splits. But it's been from what I from what I when I looked at Manny Pacquiao before, I felt that Top Rank had sufficiently underpaid him, and it even came down to when he fought Jesse Vargas as well. Top Rank were unable to meet his minimum guarantee, so they put the fight. He signed a waiver, and he fought on the Top Rank pay-per-view, their own sort of in-house streaming app, for a reduced amount, on the provision that his next fight they would meet the deficit or the shortfall. And after that, it was a fight with Jeff Horn in Australia, and we saw what happened in the fight. And I have no doubt about it that Top Rank wanted to extricate Manny Pacquiao from their books. Two reasons: the size of his minimum guarantee, the fact that he's a veteran as well. They couldn't meet the minimum guarantee no more. Plus, they had Terence Crawford moving up to 147 pounds. So we saw what happened in Australia, hometown decision. Jeff Horn, extremely physical, using a hell of a lot of dirty tactics. The belt got taken off Manny Pacquiao, went to Jeff Horn, and then subsequently, Terence Crawford, who they want to actually build up as the next pay-per-view star. They want that continuity in stars from the old to the new. It's just the dirty tricks that we see all across the board. But back to the lawsuit, yeah, official, they're gonna have to amend the lawsuit. They may actually submit a separate lawsuit to perform investment group, but they're based in the UK, so it comes down to jurisdiction. I don't see how they can contest it with DAZN US, which is the LLC, and you've got DAZN North America as well, because they're not the statutory companies. So we don't really know what their involvement is. It may just simply be bidding or rights fees on sports in North America, not just boxing. So there needs to be a lot more visibility, official, and with private companies as well. It's very difficult to obtain audited accounts both internally and externally audit the accounts, you have to really get a copy of them. Normally with Access Industries, they publish their accounts, and you can go and get it from their website, so you can actually have a look. It's a lot more difficult with private corporations. I mean, I have owned a private company, been a company director for over 6 years, so it's in the UK, it's a lot more transparent because you can do it, and in the Netherlands as well, you can do it. I've had companies both in the UK and over there, so it's far easier for anybody, if they're doing company vetting or etc., doing due diligence on individuals and companies. They can get the published copy in the UK. It's from Companies House. They publish it directly, so you can get it free of charge, or you can just pay a small fee and get a copy. So, but the finances, we don't. It's not going to be. That's not going to be the main reason. It's going to come down to the agreement. That's the key. That's the key thing. The agreement between Golden Boy and DAZN. What exactly does it stipulate? What is the structure of the payments from? Now, Oscar De La Hoya can technically say that, look, due to economic hardship, we're only going to pay you 10 million for the next fight against whoever. And we'll go down onto Canelo's dealings and wranglings as well in due course, because I think it's about time. So Golden Boy can say to Canelo, well, look, take it or leave it, is 10 million now. Once hopefully the lockdown is over, the normality is restored, there should be an explosion of demand, and for the forthcoming fights, people are going to be desperate for some live boxing. So hopefully they'll come out and support a card in the States, etc. Excuse me. So Golden Boy could say then fine, we'll meet the shortfall, whatever, the 22 million now, and we give you 50 million then. That might be perfectly feasible. That might be legal as well. But Canelo Alvarez, absolutely, he's rejected that. He doesn't think so. So he's speculating on terms that he hasn't seen. So there's a lot of uncertainty. Surely, if Golden Boy knew that, if they proposed a depreciation in Canelo's next sum, they would know straight away that they could potentially have a lawsuit against them. So Oscar De La Hoya wouldn't really be doing that, and because he's obviously, as I mentioned, he's indemnified himself for the full liability on the behalf of Golden Boy Promotions, his company. So it's a very risky strategy for him to do. But Oscar's diversified his assets. He's actually had some quite good shrewd investments. So his sole income is not specifically Golden Boy Promotions. He has other vested interests that are generating, fairly decent revenue as well. So I don't think he's as stupid as people think he is. I think, all of his cocaine binging and, his promiscuous behavior with all of these women, etc., personal vices. But I think on the business standpoint, he's not that stupid. He seems to know what he's doing. But we'll see official. So we'll wait. That the basically what the judge said is that because they've made the bold step of naming all of the defenders, and so the onus, the responsibility lies on the Maloney Group to actually to submit the evidence to try and prove sort of incontrovertibly that Golden Boy Promotions are in breach of contract. It's not down to Golden Boy. It's down to, and Golden Boy may be able to do it without even the contract being a deposition. The same way, in a way that Al Heyman paid Top Rank Promotions when Top Rank was requesting for a full audit of the company, wanting to know all of their business structure, all of their contracts, etc. But Heyman was obviously reticent to disclose all of that, so they settled before those depositions. So these are, the pen is mightier than the sword, official.
Yeah.
These contracts, you know, they've been they've been the source of so many problems in boxing. You know, Mike Tyson will tell you that as well. You know, currently we've got lawsuits between Carl Frampton and Cyclone Promotions with Barry McGuiggans as well. So it's not just isolated here; it's pretty much going on. Canelo may be in a position where he can actually buy out the contract as well. That'll definitely be an option as well. So, you know, Andre Ward had situations with, you know, the Goosens as well. So it's 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 pervasive is the word official. It's protracted, it's pervasive, it's widespread, it goes on. You know, there's a hell of a lot of criminal activities, you know, with promoters. You know, promoters ultimately work for the fighters, but you know, boxers are not the most educated. They don't understand terms agreements. They don't understand, you know, terms and liability and exit clauses, nor do they argue sometimes for their attorneys to put in those exit clauses. So it's that's why you've got to have highly competent attorneys, and in the States, the attorneys, they tend to deal more with the tax side. So you've got to go on to commercial attorneys who understand contracts. That's the way it is in Europe. They're specialized in them. So you'd think with Canelo's financial firepower, with the money he has, you know, he would have, you know, he would have consulted all of the people. They do that. They get all of the tax lawyers. They structure their payments, certainly in Vegas, but they take advantage of the tax exempt states so they can put the fights there. Top Rank does the same with, you know, the way they structured their company over there, so they can take advantage of tax exemptions. The same way for income tax as well, and then set up their holdings in places like Panama, Cyprus, Virgin Islands, Dominican Republic. The Russians use Cyprus. That's their favorite area for all of their holdings companies. You can just buy a shell corporation there and then get an address. It's a blank company. And then that's how they start trading. You know, that's how they get out of their tax obligations as well. And by law, they don't have to, those those companies where the holdings companies are based, they don't even have to disclose who are the owners or who are the shareholders. They have that for 5 years, not a non-disclosure agreement. And the only way it can happen is if the Office of Foreign Assets Control, the Serious Organized Crime Agency, the FBI, if they submit a subpoena, so it's a federal request for information. That's the only way information is disclosed within companies. So it's, yeah, that's when you see the Panama Papers with all of the, you know, pretty much every celebrity, politician, heads of state, Vladimir Putin, etc. That's how they had set up the agreements. They used a law firm over in Panama. It was a joint venture between the German and the Panamanian. And then they were setting up shell corporations, blank, literally, just there's no operational activities involved. There's no trading, buying, selling, no production, no exporting, etc. Those companies have just got to have a company secretary, and they've just got to have annual general AGM meetings once a year based there. There doesn't have to be no one even based over in those corporations, and that's how they get away with it and say, yeah, it's all registered over there, and that's how they get tax exemption, or even not even paying any tax whatsoever. Or sometimes it's depending on where he is, but they can get it down to 5, 10% as well. So they all do it, you know. Apple, all of them, all of them are do it, man. You know, so. But anyway, well, that's enough of the economics lesson. Nothing official, you know.
So does it mean we are going to Canelo's resume right now?
Yeah. We'll sort of dovetail that in with, Canelo's resume as well, because official. We hear it a tremendous amount on podcasts and shows and everywhere as well. Just the amount of eulogy for Canelo Alvarez, thinking that he's got some sort of a stellar resume, that he's clearly the best fighter in the world, multiple weight world champion. Um, but that's a highly superficial appraisal from my perspective, and I think the evidence is very clear. Either people just simply overlook that, dismiss your arguments without even really having a look at it. But you know, Canelo's Canelo's been very well protected, insulated, if not, you know, it's been it's been a witness protection program, official, certainly from the time when he was, coming up to 147 pounds, etc. Um, there's a lot of advantages that his promoters have managed to levy on his behalf. And this is the big question. It really comes down to whether, when Golden Boy bought the contract, whether it's actually Oscar De La Hoya that has been a little bit more shrewd and insulated Canelo, or negotiated the fights at the optimum time in which Canelo could obviously take advantage. So ensured a career designed to sort of maximize his disposable income, and the exorbitant wealth that he's accrued, and taken sort of minimum risks, or not fight. He's not fought fighters, at the correct time, at the correct weight, with full disclosure both on weight stipulations. There's been no rehydration clauses, etc. And there's been fully open and transparent drug testing as well. But that's clearly not the case. It started pretty early on, fighting fighting Matthew Hatton for a vacant world championship. Yeah, not Ricky Hatton, not there's only one Ricky Hatton, you know, two division champion, pretty damn good fighter. The Ricky Hatton who fought, Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather in their prime. So, brought a tremendous cult following to the United States as well. But fighting Matthew Hatton for a vacant world title, that's official to me. That's the equivalent to Myris Breeders fighting Marcellus Wilder for the WBC Cruiserweight World Championship.
Yeah, or Biol or somebody else fighting Canelo's brother Ramos, Ramos or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. Matthew Hatton. What happened in the fight as well? Matthew Hatton, managed to remain on his feet. Not a great deal of adversity as well, but it's just so many Ryan Rhodes when he fought him as well. Yeah, Ryan Rhodes of the famous Winkerbang gym as well. Over in Guadalajara, Mexico. That was Canelo being gifted the last round stoppage as well, when clearly Ryan Rhodes wasn't going to be knocked out, or etc. What else, man? What else has Canelo Alvarez been up in his career as well? Now, the interesting one was when he was looking to fight Virgil Ortiz. Virgil Ortiz, has a bit of a following. Made some appearances and that in Hollywood, etc. But Canelo really wanted to fight him. So José Lopez moved from 140 to 147 to fight Virgil Ortiz. You know, Virgil, sorry, Victor Ortiz. What am I saying?
Yeah, Victor Ortiz.
Yeah. Pardon me. So Victor Ortiz is expected to get through that fight, even though Jose Cito is a hell of a fighter. What happens in the fight, official? Victor Ortiz doesn't really have a lot of a heart, man. He gets bludgeoned up during the fight, suffers a broken jaw as well. Gets pretty badly beaten up in the fight as well. So Jose Cito Lopez prevails, but what does Canelo Alvarez do? He can't fight, obviously, Victor Ortiz. So he agrees to fight Jose Cito Lopez. Fine, he beat the guy he was looking to fight. But he doesn't fight him at 147. He drags him up to 154 pounds. So Jose Cito Lopez has moved up. In 2 fights, he's moved up 14 pounds, 2 weight divisions. Just another example of Canelo trying to fight fighters at the most sort of advantageous times for him. The WBO belt as well. That's been when Demetrius Andrade. Now you can make of him whatever you want. I'm not a tremendous fan of him, but that's somebody who has been on Canelo's coattails for well over 6 years and across actually 2 weight divisions. When he beat Vanes Martirosyan for the WBO 154 championship, Saul Alvarez became his mandatory. Andrade was calling out Canelo Alvarez. He was definitely wanting to fight him. But Canelo's team had procrastinated on the deal. The belt got stripped from Demetrius Andrade. The vacant belt got contested between Liam Smith and some Boxino fighter. From the Thompson twins. Who was it? John Thompson. Frank Warren put on that fight in the UK. John Thompson, well, it seemed like to me that he had no business in the ring. He got blasted at by Liam Smith. Liam Smith became the WBO champion, and Canelo Alvarez was still, interestingly, the mandatory for the champion. What happened? Canelo jumped on that fight straight away. Didn't want to fight Demetrius Andrade before, but definitely wanting to fight Liam Smith. This was the Liam Smith who was still living at home with his parents in Liverpool. The fight happened over in Texas, in the United States, so Smith had to travel as the champion. Canelo Alvarez couldn't even make 154 pounds without suspending all drug testing. Now, it was a unilateral decision. They had to agree it. Liam Smith had to agree it as well. But official, if this guy is still at home sharing a bunk bed with his brother, so is he really going to turn down a Canelo payday and say, no, I'm insistent we want drug testing right until the day of the weigh-in? He's not going to contest any added stipulations from Canelo Alvarez. So fine. So Canelo has to strip down to his ginger pubes after he's obviously taken whatever diuretics to get down to 154. Somehow makes the weigh-in. Butt naked. Fight goes ahead. He wins it expectedly. Liam Smith is pretty garbage. Fights a little bit like E. Honda with his head. As Liam Williams will tell you. Takes that belt. What does he do after Demetrius Andrade becomes the mandatory? It's calling that Canelo Alvarez again. Canelo Alvarez conveniently vacates the belts and moves up in weight to 160. And, Demetrius Andrade followed him up to 160 as well. So, like him, and it may be Golden Boy Promotions, it may be Oscar De La Hoya, because we saw what happened against the backfoot fighters in Erislandy Lara and the Austrian Trout. James Kirkland was due to fight Canelo Alvarez, and Erislandy Lara gate crashed the press conferences calling at Canelo Alvarez. Oscar De La Hoya was telling Canelo, Holmes, we don't want that fight. It's a dangerous opponent. He can fight on his back foot. He's going to force you to try and take, to somehow get out of your flat-footed nature, which he was very much back then. Learn new nuances in terms of trying to cut off the ring as well. Dangerous fight for somebody like Canelo Alvarez, who was a two-handed power puncher back then, very flat-footed, powerful fighter, good fighter, exciting fighter, but inequipped to deal with those sort of fighters, certainly back then. So Canelo took the fight. The Mexican contingency were giving him a hell of a lot of grief, saying that, this guy has called you out. What are you gonna do? Where's your cojones, man? Are you gonna become a chicken shit, or are you gonna fight him? So Canelo, to be fair, when said to Oscar, Mexican pride, can't have this guy calling me out at my own press conference. So make the fight. They fought. I felt Erislandy Lara beat him, and it tallies into the argument we were having last week, official. Why should Lara be penalized for fighting in the manner in which he's very, very comfortable in? He's a boxer. He fights the Cuban way. He was a world champion like that. But he's effective, and he was effective with his straight punches as well, jabs, straight left hands as well, right hands pivoting off, using the ring. Canelo had a great deal of difficulty in cutting off the ring and landing significant punches. Well, he landed, but they were few and far between. Some good body work, some good combinations, but Lara was in no real adversity. I felt Lara won the fight. I'm not sure what your opinion is, but to me, it wasn't a complex decision.
Well, look, I watched that fight only once, day after it happened, and in my opinion, it was such a fight that I watched it one time too much. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't know how to express myself, but you get me. I didn't even have to watch that fight because it was pretty boring to me. Now, scoring it back in the day, I had it 7-5 for Lara. But however, to be honest with you, aside all the things I hate about Canelo, about him being protected and being a diva, I can see it going for Canelo because Lara, in my honest opinion, is a. Remember the first episode of the last Sunday we was talking about Postal and how he fought Ramirez. Well, Lara, to me personally, is completely opposite because he was so defensively minded. He was really, he had a really low punch output, but I would say he won. You know, statistically, I would say, in my opinion, he won 7-5, but I was rooting for Canelo to win because of the way that Lara fought. Just his output was just so low, and in my opinion, that if you want to call running, I thought he was running at least by what what I'm able to recall.
Okay, yeah. I mean, there's going to be tremendous mixed opinions. Some are going to constitute it as running. Some will consider it boxing. It is an enclosed ring. It's down to Canelo to do it. Other fighters, Erislandy Lara has been floored by fighters before, so they've been able to catch up with him and knock him off as well. So it's not like Lara's style has been impervious to every pressure fighter, not being able to, catch up with him, cut him off, trap him, use good decoys or land hard enough shots that slows him down, gets him off that rhythm. or even when he's opening up with his left hand that can counter him. His fighters have clearly been able to do so. Even when he's throwing the 1-2-1, coming back with the straight right and then pivoting off as well. So, but Canelo wasn't able to do it. But maybe he was still progressing motion at the time. But it doesn't matter. Austin Trout as well, another fighter, very good fighter as well, who gave Canelo a tremendous amount of problems with that open scoring system as well. Maybe it was the disclosure of the fight cards that forced Austin Trout to change his strategy, become a little bit more aggressive, then hence get knocked down. But it doesn't matter, it's the same for both fighters. But those scorecards were rappers. Was it Levi Martinez or whoever? I think there was a 117, 111, but that's another fight that could be a potential 50-50 split. I can remember the opinion back then. A hell of a lot of people had it for Austin Trout as well. He was landing plenty of, also De La Hoya at the time, he's guard up against that left hand, that but the left cross, he did a terrible job at times with that. His guard position there was not very good. But he got through that fight as well. Going through his career as well, he goes to 168 pounds and he decides to fight Rocky Fielding. Not Rocky Balboa, but Rocky Fielding. Rocky Fielding as well from Liverpool. I don't know whether you saw the initial press conference official, but when Rocky was there talking about Canelo, he must have had a wet patch in his trousers because the acoustics of his voice just changed. The high frequencies was, the cadence of his voice had just completely changed, and he was almost like a little girl excited that he managed to secure the Canelo sweepstakes. And we all knew that, how that fight was going to happen as well. Rocky Fielding, who had been knocked out in one round, was it by Callum Smith? And we've all seen how good Callum Smith is now. He's just an unbelievably overrated fighter. Been extremely poor. He might have won the World Boxing Super Series, but some real lackluster performances there in that tournament, up against a kickboxer, Nicky Haskins from the Netherlands as well, and he just didn't have a clue how to deal with a one-dimensional transitioned kickboxer. Just poor, very poor fighter for a tall fighter. Just doesn't know how to fight at range. A little bit better on the inside, but when he fought on the inside against, John Ryder, he got absolutely smoked and protected, and he kept the belt. So Callum Smith, very, very ordinary fighter, but he still managed to obliterate Rocky Fielding in the round. So what's Canelo Alvarez going to do to Rocky Fielding? And we saw what happened. Rocky Fielding clearly did a James Buster Douglas against Evander Holyfield in the fight. He saw the dollar signs and he didn't want to continue. I mean, if I hit somebody to the solar plexus with hard body shots, you're not going to be smiling, people. You're not going to be smiling back at your corner, just thinking about your bank account and what you're going to do with the money tonight. You're going to be wincing and crying in pain. Some delayed reactions as well, but that he took some body shots. He could have fought on, but he didn't want to. His whole game plan in the fight was designed for failure. He just stood out on the back foot, didn't even move, just trying to piston through his punches, what he does. That's a fighter who completely abandoned the game plan of how to fight when you're 6'3", up against somebody who's what, 5'9", 5'10", whatever Alvarez is. So Rocky Fielding clearly didn't want to fight. So that was just Canelo being gifted with yet another belt at 168 pounds. And we see that with the WBC and the wranglings, which has somehow led to Canelo's disillusionment with both Golden Boy. No, actually not with Golden Boy, with DAZN, because of his Golden Boy proposed the fight to DAZN. When it's interesting, when David Benavidez was the 168-pound champion, you heard absolutely nothing from Golden Boy or Canelo about fighting him. Absolutely no call outs, nothing. There might have been some polite one, I don't know, but nothing official, etc. But after Benavidez is stripped off the belt second time, failing to make weight and cocaine abuses, etc. So it's second time the belt becomes vacant. Avni Yildirim somehow becomes elevated in the prime position after what happened between him and when he fought for the first time for the vacant WBC belt up against the American, which ended a little bit controversially as well. Yildirim is one of the participants for the vacant belt, and Canelo gets elevated as well with the personal relationship we know he has with Jose Sulaiman Jr., and that is a close relationship they have. So all of a sudden, Canelo gets jumped on it, and he wants to fight for the WBC belt now that David Benavidez is out of the way. They did the same thing to Caleb Plant as well, trying to get him on a very short-term deal after he fought Fagan Butts. They only really gave him less than a month to prepare, have a rest. But you know, Caleb Plant said that he would be available in September to fight. And there was insufficient time for him to have a rest. So they could have fought now in September, but Canelo didn't even want to revisit that subject as well. So, and famously official, that's the same situation when he went up to 175 pounds to fight Sergey Kovalev for the WBO light heavyweight world championship as well. So much innuendos and so much controversy, I think, that was not only leading up to the fight, but the fight itself as well. Now, we know that Cafe Duva had effectively told a number of sources that Sergey Kovalev and Main Events did not have the option of postponing the fight after quite a tough fight with Anthony Yarde in Russia, where Kovalev did get buzzed up pretty significantly, but he came back and knocked out Yarde. Credit to him, but he's a veteran, 3-time world champion, been knocked out as well, in his mid to late 30s at the time, with a new trainer as well, Buddy McGirt. So they did not give an option. Main Events had no option. It's similar to like a quote from Julius Caesar, where it's like the tide taken at the flood. If you know Julius Caesar, that's literally means, now or never. And that was their stipulation to Main Events. So within 8 weeks, Kovalev had to fight again, 175 pounds, weight stipulations, rehydration stipulations yet again. And Sergey Kovalev, he needed the money, we know that. Main Events or whoever didn't do a very good job in negotiating whatever, not even a flat fee from the second Andre Ward fight. He somehow wanted to aggregate all of the earnings based on how the fight did on pay-per-view, which in retrospect was a bad choice. So ultimately he got a very subsistent remuneration, something he clearly didn't deserve, because he's been a tremendous campaigner, fighting around, good fights, you know, really entertaining character outside the ring as well. And he's been somebody who's been targeted across, we see with this lawsuit as well, which has been dismissed, people, you know, with sexual abuse and GBH against somebody who clearly manufactured those injuries as well. You know, Main Events had settled that $200,000. But, you know, shout out to Precise Puncher, Stroke Fight Film. You know, he already covered that. But our opinion was the same at the time as well. So the fight as well, official. I don't know what your thoughts are on the fight, and you know, a lot of conspiracy theories emanating from it that Sergey Kovalev took a dive. There's
Yeah,
not any real evidence, but you only got to look at the way Sergey Kovalev fought in the fight as well. A fighter who was just circling in the one direction the entire fight, which is bizarre. He shouldn't be circling clockwise up against the southpaw like Canelo like that when he's, you know, fighting at long range. So he was moving into position for Canelo's punches, you know, leaned forward in that attack mode with his head down, slightly at a 30-degree angle as well. So literally just walking into those punches, you know, taking off all of the punches, you know, getting walked down by a fighter moving up in weight as well. Just seemed very, I don't know, just seemed bizarre. That's all I can say. That, you know, that was a genetic clone of a Sergey Kovalev in the ring. You know, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
same here, same here. Well, look, I have to address something because I did not, looking back at it, I didn't really took time to address it again after a couple of months. But initially, my thoughts were pretty much similar. I would not say at the time I was, even back then, I was not 100 sure that it was a dive, but I still do think that it's not foolish to think. Now, right now, I would not say it was necessarily a dive because we do not know.
No.
Simply because, look, he took that fight on a short notice. Plus, we know he's not disciplined, and he had a very tough time against Anthony Yarde just 2 months before, and did not have time to prepare for that fight. So I can see, I can totally see that he did not take a dive, but he was just so performing so poorly just because of how that fight was made on such a short notice. Because look, I've been saying this times and times again. Uh, right a day or two before the Yarde fight, they were asking Kovalev again once more, are you going to take that Canelo fight? Because it was already, people were already talking about that offer from Canelo, and he was saying, no way, I would have time to prepare for it. And then I know couple of days after that they offered him more money, and he was like, yeah, I will be prepared. But what is funny about the fight itself is a really great amount of people thought that something really bizarre and weird was happening in the ring. Me myself, I could not believe, again, could not believe what he was doing in the ring, Kovalev. But looking back at it, maybe you can excuse it with him not being prepared enough, being drained. And by the way, let's mention that it was a one-way, how do you say it, one weight clause for Kovalev, catch weight on his side only. And what else? Yeah, but you even had some professional fighters. Okay, was it Durrell's, but also a guy from what's his name? The guy who fought Brown, who's fighting out of Mayweather's gym. He was convinced at the time that Kovalev took a dive.
But do
And
Jackie,
Badu Jack, yeah, exactly. Thank you.
yeah.
So even himself, he was convinced it was that perhaps Kovalev took a dive. I'm still not sure about it, but anyways, it was extremely poor performance. But to look, Canelo in general, not only he was being protected, etc. And I would say he's a pretty good fighter, but you cannot. His fanboys are just terrible because look, I get some people hate on him for no reason. He's pretty skilled fighter, good fighter, but however, man, he's always allowed to do what he wants to do, and nothing bad about it. If he wants to, him and Golden Boy wants to prolong his career and earn money, I'm giving you all respect for that. But the problem is, you cannot ask me to treat him the same way and call him as great of a fighter as some other people like Chocolatito Gonzalez or Pacquiao, who were on the other side of those things and still managed to have far greater careers, in my opinion, and were even better fighters, more skilled. That's the first thing. So, but beside that, yeah, we saw Canelo also draining fighters, trying to catch him at the right, catch them at the right time of their careers. So superficially, when you look at his career on paper, you would say you would be right to say, oh, he fought all those really wonderful, great names, but take a look at where they were at that point of their careers. How old were they? What kind of performances did they have? And
Yeah.
uh,
Yes, agreed.
that not being enough for them, for Canelo and Golden Boy, third tactic for them is to start catching fighters on a short notice, as we saw with Kovalev, and they tried to pull the same thing with Caleb Plant. Now, look, I would think he would be able to break down Plant in the later rounds. Probably, I didn't do any film study on that possible fight yet. But yeah, I was totally on Caleb Plant's side because I was shocked so many people were saying, who is Caleb Plant to refuse that offer from Canelo? But he was pulling the same thing he did with Kovalev. And I was saying all respect to Caleb Plant for not taking the bait because it's just enough, man. I cannot stand it for fighters to pull all that A side shit. Now he's the first one trying to catch every fighter on a short notice, and he's very extreme at that. So please don't ask me to give him the same respect, the respect I'm giving to some greater fighters, and then call me a hater for that. No, not at all. So
Yeah,
that's
that's right, man. Because people are very, very quick to criticize, Gennady Golovkin for his lackluster, resume as well. They, the amount of condemnation now that Gennady is a veteran is just extraordinary. You know, in comparison to Canelo Alvarez, and it's like it's a reciprocal kind of condemnation that goes completely out of one fighter into the other fighter. It you know I'm just sometimes wondering, like, I mean, why the hell do I even interact with these idiots who, literally, this is the same Canelo Alvarez that sat down and vacated the WBC championship without fighting Gennady Golovkin, literally gave it away, wrapped up, wrapping paper, ribbons on it, attack, everything, and said to Gennady, you know, I've shut, I've, my pants are soiled. I don't want to fight you. Here's the belt. Christmas card is inside as well. Congratulations. And ran back to Guadalajara. That's what he did. That's exactly what he did. And the way he, the way he sugarcoated it is that Gennady refused to accept a flat fee. They were just offering a flat fee, 10 million, which is like they do that a lot in investments. Certainly when it comes to buying oil, petroleum, they do price options. So 10 million now for the fight to take place next year. But during that period, a fighter's market value can change so much. It can astronomically increase, or it can depreciate, and it will depreciate if it's a bad performance, or if they suffer a shock loss, etc. So Golovkin was rightly so in saying, piss off. There's no way I'm accepting just a flat fee.
Yeah.
But that was just a tactic to say that, and he knew that. Um, Golovkin's promoters were just gonna outright reject the offer. Everybody knew it was just it was just a way. They did the same with Sergey Dermianchenko when he had the IBF belt as well. I know Free Kings Boxing, shout out to them, because they interviewed Salazar from the IBF. Free Kings Boxing is a brilliant repository for boxing information. So go over to their website. Really good guys who I've known for a while. Bo actually interviewed, was it Natalie Salazar for the IBF, and she mentioned that Golden Boy Promotions were just fucking around, and they applied for an extension so late, and that's the reason why the fight got scuppered. Canelo, the belt got taken off him, and then the IBF became vacant, and so Dermianchenko fought Danny Jacobs for the vacant belt. But according to them, it may have been that Canelo is actually that's where the animosity between Golden Boy and Canelo Alvarez may not have just started, but that might have been that might have been the straw that broke the camel's back. In fact, I think Canelo definitely wanted to fight him, according to what those guys have reported on. But Golden Boy had other plans. They didn't. They saw Canelo with somebody else, so they weren't too bothered about the IBF belt. But official is you can just reel off. Shane Mosley is another one. This is the veteran Shane Mosley, had already been beaten up by Manny Pacquiao at a lower weight. This is a Shane Mosley that drew with the Latin lizard Sergio Mora, and then Canelo fights him after that. Sergio Mora, who's got as much punch power and the ability to win the fight, on debilitating punches as like a Paulie Malignaggi, just not the same Sergio Mora who fought Vernon Forrest, was very good back then. And Canelo jumps in bed straight after with a washed up Shane Mosley, and Shane Mosley survives pretty easily in the fight. Was actually very good in the fight. At some times was out boxing Alvarez as well. Very good old boxer as well. So official, we can literally sit down and write a book on the witness protection program that has been the career long. The same Canelo Alvarez that got a split decision against the money man himself, Floyd Mayweather, official. Been significantly outboxed, and with the power he has with the casinos and the owners in Las Vegas, is able to get, is able to get. Floyd is not able to get, what should have been a clear, unanimous decision, victory. But that's the power Alvarez wields, even when fighting on Showtime against, Floyd Mayweather, who's, we know about his financial achievements in the game. But Alvarez, even back then, who was very young, what was he, 20, 21 odd, something like that? That he was a commodity with that sort of upside then, that it was to me, it was evident from then that he was going to become the biggest player in boxing from a financial sense. It's all about, the Vegas, it's all about the casinos. the houses, the sheer number of the volume of betting that takes place during Cinco de Mayo when Canelo fights as well, and now the contract he has in surpassing Floyd Mayweather's, but that's now under scrutiny. Canelo, you should be getting 11 prime athletes, but no, he wants a hell of a lot of tune-ups and easy fights. He wanted Rocky Fielding first fight. Now he wants Avni Yield to them as well. He's what they say in the UK. He's taking the piss. Official.
Yeah, I mean, for getting that kind of money for 11 fights, you're supposed to fight to have big fights. So almost all of them to be big fights. Now, fair enough to Canelo. If it was not stipulated in the contract, then okay. But I don't know. But however, I cannot see any network giving you that kind of money and letting you continue fighting yield dreams of the world. But funny enough, you just mentioned that crazy scorecard from the Mayweather fight. I'll try to make a joke. I mean, it would be good for Golden Boy, for Oscar De La Hoya, sorry, to 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 throw a counter lawsuit asking Canelo to pay him back all the money he paid the judges with. And yeah, but one last thing from me on his resume is that he fought Golovkin in September of 2017, but go back to 2013 against Floyd Mayweather. That was a catchweight. Back in the day, Canelo was a 154-pounder, and he was that Bucho from BDA. On his channel, he has a video clip from the weighting of the fight. Canelo was a walking corpse. I mean, not even a walking corpse, because he was not able to walk, to stay on his feet on the weighting. He was so drained that he was sitting there, on a chair or whatever. I cannot remember. Then the very next fight in March of 2014 against Alfredo Angulo. So that was the last time we were able to see on HBO Canelo's weight in the ring, and it was something like 172 or 173. From that point on, we were never allowed to see his weight in the ring again. And he passed the time until fighting Golovkin, saying, him and Oscar De La Hoya, saying that he did not grow into a real 160, 100-pounder, which was crazy, because like you mentioned earlier, against Liam Smith, he had to strip bare naked in order to make that weight. And plus, speaking of that fight, what is very funny is that it was them who asked for no drug. How do you say it? If you can help me out, there was no.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they were trying to spin that story into saying it was Liam Smith asking for that, for the fight not to have the drug test, which is crazy. And I mean, as if Liam Smith from his parent, from his chamber, from his room in his parents' house, was able to to decide anything on that fight.
Official. We can get into the Clenbuterol as well. With the second Golovkin fight as well. Canelo has a guarded place over in San Diego, where he generally conducts his training. But Varda decided to visit him in Guadalajara, Mexico, which was a huge shock to him at the time. So are we surprised? Catching him literally out of the sort of 8-week parameters. Canelo, and he tried to extricate that one as well with just an amazingly manufactured story as well. And I covered that in detail, looking at all of the farms over in Mexico. I know exactly, how the slaughtering of it takes place, because they apply the clenbuterol after the slaughter to actually burn all of the fat. So it maximizes the amount of meat in which they can subsequently export or sell to the domestic markets in Mexico as well. But correct me if I'm wrong, official, is Canelo's trainers, one of the Reynosos is a quite an astute chef as well.
He's a butcher. Yeah.
Yeah, so when you're overseeing Canelo's diet and all of his massage duties and etc. like that, and the amount of wealth that Canelo Alvarez has, um, you know, it questions where you source your produce from, um, and as an athlete, you clearly know, because the rules are sent to you all the time from the sanctioning bodies regarding what is prohibited, what isn't, what is banned, what isn't, what is considered out of competition, what is allowed in competition. It's if you've seen the prohibited lists that are furnished to these athletes, if they have any questions, then by all means they can contact and get immediate clarification. And the interaction is pretty quick. They don't sit on it for 2 months without answering. It's a quick turnaround. So the responsibility is 100% with the athlete. That's not a substance that is generated autonomously in the human body by when people have had excessive testosterone, etc. There is arguments that the body can generate, excessive testosterone, which sometimes can lead to a failed drugs test. But a substance like that is your body's chemical processing, converting all of those and using the amino acids. It doesn't lead to anything like that whatsoever. In fact, it boosts all of those amino acids, so your body absorbs glucose at twice the rate, opens up the cells, so it enhances the amount of oxygen rich hemoglobin that actually is going to those muscles. And we've seen Canelo's size, the way it's increased overall, and that's how he's able to rehydrate so much, because muscles not only do they require a lot of oxygen, but they have the ability to hold so much more water. So a fighter can obviously rehydrate by just loading up those muscles, which, how on earth has he built those muscles? Look at the transformation in his body shapes. It can be nothing other than human growth hormones. I can't see any other logical explanation for that. And once that happens, the process is irrevocable. The bones expand to such a rate that you can't have an osteoporosis unless you actually have a disease like that. You can't go back down. You can't reduce the size of the bone density and the expansion of the bone once you've utilized, HGH, which, only an endocrinologist can actually subscribe under one of 4 reasons. It's a very, very strict, highly strict drug, under label. These pharmacies, they get custodian sentences. It's very serious over there. You only get it if you've got HIV, you've had your stomach removed from cancer, etc. Those are the only reasons in which you can, an endocrinologist will prescribe, HGH. Child, as I mentioned, who's got bone disease, etc. So the growth is significantly impacted. But athletes have been taking it left, right, and center. There's no testing. There's no specific drug testing for HGH either. The science they use, they look at the amount of blood cells that are created. That's how the drug testing works for HGH. So it's definitely a loophole that a lot of boxers and athletes have managed to exploit over the years. Back from Evander Holyfield, etc. So it's been going on at a rapid scale. So Canelo,
Yeah. I mean, even I was trying to say that because of the AGH, it also happens sometimes to the athletes that their teeth, because of the bone growth, they start growing wide apart. You know, things
Yeah.
like that. There's a lot of those small things that you can see, but as if we needed that to, to see that Canelo is an obvious user. Now, look, to be honest with you, my personal opinion is that I'm not. I mean, so many athletes, so many boxers are using different kinds of PEDs and steroids that I'm not really mad at him for that. But my problem with him is that it's just another way from him to A-side the fuck out of his opponent, and at the same
Yeah.
time not allow his opponents to do the same thing. That's what really bothers me. And by the way, another shout out to Carnival, aka Fight Film, because back in the day when the situation with his positive test occurred, he broke that down very precisely about, and he even gave an example of Tour de France cyclist who was caught with 100 times or 10 times less amount of clenbuterol than Canelo was caught with. And then I'm not sure if he was banned for life. I think so, or at least for a couple of years. But I think he was banned for life, in my opinion. Although I'm not 100% sure on it.
Yeah, it was I think it was a Spanish rider. Yeah, I do remember that story. Uh, if you recall, uh, Carnival and myself, we broke down that whole clenbuterol on a BDA episode. We did like a hour and a half session in which we went into the Tour de France and other sports, in where one was volleyball as well, where two athletes had used um, what was the concentration? I think it was around 4.5 times 10 to the power of 6, something like that. So it wasn't down to picograms. It was a lot more than that, but it wasn't to the levels that were found in Alvarez's system. But they had 5-year bans, and one of them had a 10-year ban. So extremely punitive penalties for those sort of athletes. But Canelo's ban, it was almost backdated. It was conveniently sort of backdated, so it almost filled it into the second, Golovkin fight. Um, so, um, yeah, I think we pretty much articulated it. You can, 175 pounds after he's beaten, you know, if his body is at that sort of expansive rate, why not stay up at 175? You've picked off the veteran Kovalev, even when he was conveniently at the time of the lawsuit as well, which we've mentioned, this just turned out to be absolutely bogus, the GBH charges as well. So at an extremely vulnerable time, they managed to get Kovalev as well. But what happens after he's won the belt official? Does he stay there at 175? What does he do? He vacates the belt even before Artur Baturbiev can finish morning prayers.
Wonderful. Yeah. I mean, to answer your question, I'm not sure even Canelo himself really knows where he is. I mean, in my opinion, it would be hard for him at this point, with, with so much bone growth he had to drain down to 160. But so he'll probably stay at 168. But yeah, uh, I mean, I said this in the past. While people are like making him to be a god for moving up to 175 and fight old and shot, and not only that, but unprepared Kovalev, and make it as some fantastic achievement, which, okay, credit to him, but if it's something really fantastic, I don't know at all. while at the same time you had Chocolatito, who back in the day moved up to 115 and fought Quadras and then Srisaketso Rungvisai. And but the difference is, see, first of all, Chocolatito doesn't have nearly as big of a following as Canelo has, and second of all, he by staying at that new division, which you know, is too big of a division for him size wise. He kind of used the make his fans used to the fact that he started fighting in a big division. So it was after the first fight, for most of the fans, it was just business, like business as usual. I don't know how to put it together with my words, but what I'm trying to say is, like, he went up, he moved up to a new division where he's a tiny fighter, and kept on fighting beast after beast until getting knocked out. While Canelo just did that once against a shot fighter, man, and moved back down right away.
Yeah, it's to even mention it in the same sentence as, you know, fighters like Harry Greb when they're fighting up against, you know, heavyweights like Gene Tunney, the weight disparity in all of their fights, it progressively got down at, you know, the more fights they had, where Tunney started to come back. But some of these special fighters that have so many, there's, you can just go, you know, look at Sam Langford when he was fighting up against the heavyweight killers, you know, the Jack Johnsons, the Sam McVeighs, all of them. You know, the weight discrepancy he had for somebody who's only what 5'7", 5'8" as well, but in both height and reach and weight as well. So that's how the great fighters manage to deal with that sort of adversity. Now look at Henry Armstrong, the amount of weight he had to jump, 3 simultaneous weight classes as well. No stipulations, nothing like that back then. But the way Alvarez, you know, and his antics and you know the rehydration clauses, which he's more than happy to impose, like it did with, you know, Danny Jacobs with the IBF as well. So it's, I don't know, official, but it really comes down to, is it Canelo or is it Oscar De La Hoya, his custodian that has protected his career? It could be, it very much could be Oscar De La Hoya. I'm sure Canelo would have taken up some of those challenges. So we'll find out. We'll probably find out in due course if there is an extrication between the two parties, and Canelo comes out full disclosure and says, breaks it down in either a long video or a book, and he may just go on a rant and just totally desecrate Oscar and say, look, it was him who held me back, him who turned down all these fights, him who told me to vacate this belt, etc. It does sound like it. It does, you know, I mean, it does sound like it. It's in Oscar's playbook as well. You know, in this role of promoter he has. So if it is, then fine. Then, you know, we'll exonerate Canelo from any such criticism. But, you know, Oscar works for Canelo. You know, Canelo is the main man. If he doesn't have a major saying in the fights, the fighters, the weight categories, um, you know, then I'd be shocked. I'd be shocked. I think I think he's got just as strong in terms of dictating and guiding and steering his career as anybody else. So um, we'll uh, we'll wait with great deal of anticipation on the next installment of the lawsuit, official, because it's getting interesting now with all of the details that we want to know that can paint a picture on Canelo's career up until this point. They'll also become clear, so it'll have a dual purpose. Once those legal agreements, hopefully, that are depositioned and become available, and, you know, and then are read out in court, and then all of the journalists can publish them, and then everybody has full disclosure and visibility of them as well. But yeah, I think if Canelo is listening to this podcast, he's probably out killing his horses now in dismay. So we'll 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 leave that one there. But yeah, man, you Canelo fanboys need to calm down, man. He's nothing special. We've seen so many better already out there right now, that you guys just are just got your blinders on, have got no interest in acknowledging, because they may be physically small, or they don't earn as much money, or they're not shown on your whack ass TV sets in whatever country you are. That's no reason to dismiss, totally ignore the talent. But a lot of these guys don't even have the ability to analyze, the fighters. So, it's maybe futile and even going down this path. But we'll leave it there, official. And I think what we'll do is that moves us conveniently into a fighter who is somebody that we've had an eye on when when he turned sort of professional very early on. And we've been monitoring his progress keenly, because his skill set, pretty much from the jump-go, was at an advanced stage for somebody so young. He turned professional 17, and even on his first fight, you could see, the raw, but the skills were there. And this individual fought on the undercard of, I think it was the Ramirez and the Victor Postol WBC 140 light junior welterweight title bout, fought on one of the early undercards as well. So his talents are getting showcased. The void that was left by Angel Acosta at junior flyweight, which was disappointing, because he was somebody unique up at those weight categories, having the ability to flatline people with one punch, something that all of these boxing fans just do not even believe, or even understand, or can even grasp, can even fathom. They're thinking they're just wielding the wave, throwing 1,000 shots and doing no damage. They got poor skill sets. We hear all of those cliches and nonsensical, rubbish from a lot of these channels and so-called boxing fans. But we, as we said before, we're oblivious to the stupidity, man. This is about creativity and true expression of greatness, irrespective of weight, which country, your jurisdiction, where you're domiciled, where you fight. You could be fighting in South Africa, you got talent, we'll hopefully spot it, and we'll showcase it and break it down in detail. That's what we're about. And so a fighter that has now conveniently moved into contention at junior flyweight, a weight category that I've said so many times and made videos about, is for me is the best in boxing by far. 140 is also good. Cruiserweight is fantastic, always has been since its inception. A lot of good, but 108, 115 is also good. Even 105 now is fantastic, with Dusmatov and Shigeoka there as well. So a lot of good stuff happening. But this guy has the ability, I think he has the upside, official, to win championships at the current weight he's at. But he's getting bigger as well. We don't know whether he's going to stay there. He might go up to 112 subsequently, but he's got the ability to win championships, I think, at 108 flyweight and super flyweight. Jesse Bam Rodriguez from San Antonio, Texas. 20 years old. He's been fighting 3 years. He'll turn 21, I think, in January of next year. 12-0 at the moment with 8 knockouts. moving up the ranks, getting better and better opposition. Fought Riviera from Puerto Rico, on the Victor Postol undercard, the Ramirez undercard. Magnificent performance. But a fighter with an unbelievable skill set, and that moves us conveniently onto the quantum science section. And official, I'll move over to you, your trusted hands and abilities.
Thank you. Yeah, so Jesse Bam Rodriguez, during his last fight on the undercard, that just occurred the last weekend, the commentator said that his coach Robert Garcia is claiming, out of all the fighters he has in his camp, Jesse Rodriguez is perhaps the most talented of all of them, and it speaks a lot. Now, normally, I'd get it as as just a coach trying to hype up his less known fighters, but watching and studying his couple of his fights, but it was enough for me to see that he's a great talent, man, because he's just like you said. There's a perception that fighters in certain weight classes are not hard hitting and just they're all about the output, punching output, the activity.
Yeah.
But he's a very hard puncher, another among them, and explosive. Yeah. So, and by the way, I would just say that I think that those misconceptions about those lower weight divisions may be the case of some of the American journalists, saying that, and then the rest of the boxing public going along with it. But okay, let's go to Rodriguez. Now, if you know me, guys, on my own
But
channel, I used to do some. Yeah,
official, it's one quick point. It's also that the Americans, they don't have the monopoly on that, at strawweight, flyweight, super flyweight. I think that's also a key as well. So they'll try and dismiss those divisions as being insignificant because they don't have no champions up there, nor do they have the networks that cover them, because Japan is the dominant force, and Mexico as well. So it's the case of economic sabotage to a certain extent.
Oh, absolutely. I agree 100% with you. I have no doubts about what you just said. Yeah, and it may change with Rodriguez, who's fighting out of Texas. Hopefully so. But anyways, what I saw from him is very good distance control, staying slightly outside of the opponent's range and bouncing diagonally, front and back, and from his front to back foot and from left to right. And being that the whole Lomachenko's father's camp used to be neighbors with Robert Garcia's camp, training in the same gym owned by Robert, just upstairs, and later buying Robert's old gym. I don't think it's an accident that I'm seeing a lot of the same moves and looks in Jesse Bam Rodriguez that Lomachenko is giving to his opponents. Notably, the way Jesse Rodriguez is probing and reading his opponent's reaction in the first round, and the movements that I'm just about to show you. But anyways, for any of you knowing my channel, I used to do some. I used to recreate the moves of the fighters I really enjoy, and for this episode, I did the same thing earlier today. So I'm gonna share the screen, hopefully, but just one thing, hopefully, uh,
Yeah,
it's
you
going to.
guys are getting a treat. This is 21st century fight reproduction breakdowns from a podcast.
Just give me a second. I hope it it would go well, everybody is going to be able to see it, because I'm afraid it may start bugging, but hopefully not.
Yeah, I can see it.
Great. But now, so yeah, here I did not have enough of time to put on Rodriguez's face over my face, so you're able to see me. But anyways, in this first clip, what I'm showing is just how the way he bounces on his feet, like I said, back and forth, and moving his upper body from his right foot to his left, uh, while of course staying just outside of his opponent's reach. And then here is the exact look that is exact to what Lomachenko is doing, how he kind of probes and tries to get timing of his opponents in the earlier rounds without even throwing punches. He would lean slightly over his front foot with having his hands up, then back to the back foot, and then even lean further over his front foot the next time, get an even deeper angle, and that is the exact thing that Loma is doing. So front foot, back foot, weight going back over his front foot, and from there he can just place his weight back over his back foot and counter his opponents with a jab while they're trying to reach him. Yeah, so, but essentially, that is the same thing Loma is doing that I like about him. He does not necessarily strike you with power punches right away when he gets you off balance, and that's a half, if not whole of his whole game plan, to get you off balance. The moment you're off balance, to counter you again, get an angle on you.
What
So
he
yeah.
what he did, official, what he did to Riviera, the final devastating knockout, that was Vasily Lomachenko, because he took the angle on the outside. He got his lead foot on the outside, created the angle, and then knocked out Riviera with a punch that he didn't even see. It just came out of nowhere. That was Vasily Lomachenko.
Yeah, and you're going to like it, because in a few videos I try to replicate that knockout, how he set up angles, which is pretty interesting. But just give me a bit of time. I'm gonna go through some other clips before that one. Let me just try to remember.
So very
What
quickly, Jesse's a southpaw. He's around 5 feet 4 inches for some of the people who may not be familiar with him.
Yeah,
Pressure
and
fighter.
sorry, go on. Feel free to go on.
He's a pressure fighter, but he's a stalker. He does it in the way in which the optimum real estate on the ring for him is to get his opponents with their back up against the ropes or trapped on the corner. That's the way he tries to navigate his opponents, and that's where he essentially does all of his work. He's got I personally, for me, what I noticed straight away, he's got an Alexander Usyk jab. It's a multi-purpose jab in which he'll establish range, he'll probe, he'll pull out the guards, he'll punish you in between, he'll change the speed, the length, the velocity, he'll hook off the jab, he'll pivot off once he's hooked off the jab. It's a brilliant tool, and what Vasily also does, is that if he cannot get his opponents out at that position up against the ropes where they're trapped, so these opponents have got no leverage, he'll hook them across. So he'll use that jab to shift them across or get him out of the corner and get him into his hooks, short hooks, or his body punches as well. So like Vasily, he's almost prognosticating in his head exactly where on the canvas he's gonna knock him out. That's the impression I get. It's like he's painting a picture, like his masterpiece on canvas with his boxing ability. So he's two steps ahead of his opponent, and he knows exactly where and when and how he's going to get him into the position to obliterate them if he can.
Yeah, I would agree with it. And yeah, he definitely he can use his jab in different forms and ways. Not always a hard jab, stiff jab. Sometimes he sets the other punches up with it, etc. And you're very right about his pressure. I mean, I mentioned that he's great at distance control, but at the same time, yeah, he is staying just outside of his opponent's range, trying to get them off balance. But however, at the same time, he is always inching towards his opponents, trying to put them in that part of at that part of the ring. But I just want to say one thing about these replications that I did, that I recorded today. Now, I'm not executing all those moves perfectly because, first of all, I still have a terrible knee injury, and second of all, I'm not a southpaw. I'm an orthodox. But yeah, that's it. So let's go to the next one. Just
Yeah, you're going to have to be a switch hitter in going forward, official.
yeah, it looks like that. Yeah, so basically what I'm doing here in this video is just showing you how he very often, look, him being a southpaw and very often fighting against the orthodox fighters, he on with his good range control, distance control, he only has to worry about that front left arm, and so he can play with it and step just slightly into a range of the opponent's jab and then slip it, or he can move back over to his rear left foot and still escape from getting touched by the opponent's right hand. And just like Vasily Lomachenko often does, let's call it some kind of southpaw pull counter against an orthodox fighter, where when he gets back on his back foot, transfers his upper body over his back foot, he's out of range for that right hand. And see here, when he leans, or perhaps I lean over my front foot, I escape a jab by going to my back foot and then throwing a straight left counter. And he does this a lot. And as I'm going to show you a bit later, that's the his bouncing from the back foot had a lot of I'd say a lot to do with the way he knocked out his last opponent the last week. But anyways, whenever you want to say something, just feel free to fill in.
No, go ahead. It's cool. Pretty.
Okay.
I've covered him pretty concisely. You go ahead, man.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, here he gets an angle, works with his rear hand, and then, for example, throws a looping left hand or a left hook. And then I saw, even I was watching earlier, sorry for that, his sparring videos from Robert's gym, and he's
Okay.
very good at inside fighting as well. And then when he's at that very short range, after throwing his punches, he's very aware of smothering the
Yeah,
possible punches.
yeah.
So this way, he throws a left hand and then sticks his forearm into his opponent's guard, and then moves away.
Yeah, I've noticed that he's got a very good ability to, because I think it was early on in these fights. Two of the guys were trying to clinch and smother his work, especially when he lands that mean. He shortens up his left hook into the liver, vicious punch, and after the body shot, they were trying to smother it, but he came back with his right forearm straight after the hook. So it was almost instinctual and created the separation. So yeah, I noticed that as well. His ability just to know the exact distance, because his jab is so prominent, so forthcoming. He uses it so much. It's just one of the best jabs I've seen. Because the multitude of purposes for a 20-year-old, it's crazy. He blinds his opponents, off balance, everything. Set up, range finder, hard jab sometimes through the guard. You know, real tremendous fighter. And he's learned that ability to know that if his opponents are going to get a little bit dirty, how to re-establish range and distance, whether it's stepping back. He's got to do that a little bit better, but he tends to use his forearm. But referees may get onto him eventually for that, because they don't really like that sort of pushing element.
Yeah, that's right. Now here, so okay, I told you, I explained you how he bounces from front to back foot, from right to left, and being that he with his front right foot, he lives he stays just either outside of the opponent's jabbing range, orthodox opponent's jabbing range, or he can get in just slightly inside of range. And I previously showed you that he can time jabs because for him to create the angles to get on the outside of the orthodox opponent's left foot, he needs his opponent to engage with his front hand, meaning left hand, usually throwing a jab. So he can either and of course his opponents are trying to catch him when he bounces from his back to front foot, just
Okay.
just like this. And okay, I told you he can move back to his rear foot and then either counter or whatever, disengage, but he also can time it. That's partly how he's confusing his opponents. Sometimes he would move back over to his rear foot, but sometimes he would slip the jab. Hold on. Like here. Oh, not yet. Yeah, and pivot, shift from there under the jab, and then create that angle on the outside of the opponent's, orthodox opponent's left foot. So yeah, it's he's timing those jabs, and I will show you later how sometimes it's different. Like in one of his other fights, where his opponents were was not giving him the openings with his jab. Okay, right to the next clip. Let me figure out what I'm doing here. Yeah, another example of him just bouncing in and out of in front of the opponent outside of his range, then steps in just to throw a jab, and then steps out while his opponent is engaging, moving towards him. When he moves out, he can still use that right forearm and place the liver shot, because he puts it over his opponent's guard, and mainly his his right forearm, and from there he can create the angles, etc.
You know what, official? His style is very much probing and then dissecting and then knocking you
Exactly.
out. It's a very,
Exactly.
it's methodical. It's structured. It's actually quite patient. Although he might get 3 knockdowns in a round as he did with Riviera, but he wasn't flustered. there was a great deal of composure, and it was calculated. You could see what he was doing. This, I like that, somebody who calibrates their attacks in that sense with a with a thought process. That means he's studied his opponents, and he knows his strengths and weaknesses very well, and he's got that patient approach. He doesn't go there with fist flailing, as we see with a lot of these amateur fighters. Just on aggression and work rate, sitting on somebody's chest. He's the polar opposite. He's he's a little magician at work.
Definitely. And yeah, and it's also, I'm pretty much sure it also has a lot to do with just drilling those things to perfection. I mean, in order to use different punches in many different ways, you can use pretty much the similar combos, but just tweak them a bit. Let's say you can throw 1-2, but then you can throw one, then use the lateral movement, then throw that too. I mean, I don't know how to explain it, but it's just little things that he can set up his offense the similar way, but do so many different things with it. So, okay, here, for example, his opponents throw, at the moment, his opponent is throwing a jab, because his opponent, this was his last fight I was dissecting. So his last opponent throws 1-2 and left hook. On opponent's jab, he steps in, parries it, and gets over his front foot, then evades a straight right by moving back over his back foot, transferring his upper body over his back foot. And then on that left hook from his opponent, he just moves his head, he slips to outside, to the right and over his front foot, and check hooks him.
Yeah, he's a master already of that lead hand control, where he can jab over his opponents, parry their jab, so he'll establish a higher jab over him. So he then, once he has that lead hand control, then he can pretty much navigate them to wherever he wants. If you've got lead hand control, then it's a hell of a lot easier to get lead foot control.
Yeah.
That's the way Usyk does it as well, the same way. But Usyk does it with more movements, like in between. He can stay pretty much stationary, just stalking the opponent. So different, but similar as well.
And just speaking of being stationary and evading punches, here's a great example. So this reminded me a lot of how I used to say in the past. I used to talk about Chocolatito Gonzalez transferring his upper body from his front to back foot, but it also reminds me of that fantastic sequence that Lomachenko had in the later rounds against Jose Pedraza. I mean, I do not recall exactly how that sequence went, but I'm sure you know the sequence I'm talking about, where Lomachenko is moving his upper body and countering like 7 or 8 of Pedraza's punches in like 3 seconds. So yeah, so he jabs, steps in, and his upper body is over his front foot. Then on the opponent's right hand counter, he slightly parries it while moving again his upper body over his back foot without even using his feet, just moving his upper body over the back foot. And then in the same breath, he pushes his upper body to his front foot and just slips in a beautiful straight left hand.
Official,
Yeah.
the big questions that need to be answered is, how is Jesse gonna react, stroke deal with a fighter who has the power, the strength, and the work rate and boxing ability to push him back on his back foot, to walk him down instead of him stalking him. And somebody like, we know Hiroto Kiyoguchi fights like that, you know, somebody like that who has that, you know, even Elvin Soto, somebody who can on their front foot give him perhaps maybe a little bit more even hand speed, a little bit more faster, shorter punches, gets him on his back foot, how he's going to, you know, what adjustments he's going to make, or can he re-establish? What's he going to do? Is he going to fight on his back foot, or is he going to? I think what he'll do, and we haven't seen it thus far because he's been dominating, but he's got the ability to create those angles. He can sidestep you, transfer the weight distribution. He'll even take that odd angle as he does with that bizarre right hand he fires to the body as well from a real wide angle. So I think he's got that ability, official, where he necessarily doesn't have to go back in one direction. So just purely horizontally, I think he can go around the opponent and create a better angle. I think he even meet, although he hasn't shown it, but I think he has that ability to switch it as well. Just by the way he throws that right hook, you know, which is amazing. And the way, you know, his backhand to his power hand to the body, and sometimes he uses it as he straightens up that hand, so it almost looks like he can actually jab off his power hand if you switch to orthodox. So what I'm saying is that I think he's going to be able to pull some tricks out of the hat when he's faced with that sort of pressure. Somebody who can give him that heat at that sort of range and get him on his you know, on his toe, on the heels of his foot, and pushing him back.
Well, look, I was just about to say it because I mean, okay, first of all, I haven't thought about those possible matchups, and those would be great fights. So I haven't done any film study to be sure about the outcome. But however, what I would say is that maybe for him to be pressured by his opponents, maybe it would be a blessing. In fact, maybe it would be half of his job being done by his opponent, because many fighters, in fact, are even more comfortable when you're coming to them. So they are, especially if they have such an educated footwork and good quick feet, you know, they can use the opponent's movement, forward momentum, to just create even more openings. So I don't know, I would have to do my film studies on those possible fights, but I would say look just look at Pacquiao, or even again, hey, to bring him up again, or even better than Lomachenko, Usyk. To me, Usyk is fighting better on his, let's not say back foot, but yeah, when he's pressured, he's just allowed to create those angles more freely and more more
Yes.
often. So it may be a blessing, but I'm I, I'm still not sure because I have to do my film study.
Yeah.
But
But
here, yeah,
he to me he's just a natural aggressive stalker. I think he likes it. That's his preferred sort of optimum position on the ring. That's what he wants. And I think he's got the IQ, and I think he's got the boxing ability and the punching power. If he's got, it's what it's going to come down to, because Felix Alvarado, the IBF champ, he can punch. He's very heavy-handed. Carlos Canazales, he can fight and he can box. He can do everything. He's probably the most dynamic out of all of them. Elvin Soto can fight as well. He's a fighter, man, and he's got a very strong chin. So it's going to come down to his chin when he's chin checked, and he's been hit on. He's been hit. I think. I can't remember the name, but I don't know whether you saw him in your coverage of him official. But a couple of years ago, I think he got caned with a real hard counter right hook, sort of buzzed him a little bit, but he sort of smiled and came back. So it looks like he's got the intensity to fight as well. So there's fighters from sort of Mexico fighting over in the United States as well. They have that. So chin and a pressure fighter, but potential matchups are all there. The question is how this fight's going to happen. Is he willing to go to Japan if he has to? Ken Shu at the WBC. Hiroto is the WBA, the Ring Magazine. IBF Felix Alvarado, WBA regular. Canazales from Venezuela, but the fight purses are better for him in Japan, so he's happy fighting over there. Tremendous fighter, probably the most underrated fighter in all of boxing. Said that for years. Good matchups. He's got a big promoter behind him. He's got Tekken Promotion, so it can happen. Official, no reason why it cannot.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to tell you. I mean, being that he's with Taken Promotion, and it was said, I think, during his last fight, that it was Robert Garcia who brokered the deal, because he had dealings with Mr. Honda from Taken from way before, and Robert Garcia himself thought for Bam Rodriguez and his weight class. Taken would be a fantastic promoter. So yeah, I see no reason for him fighting in Japan not happening, especially since, like, you know it way better than me. They're getting sometimes millions of fans tuning in live to watch fights, and yeah, so there's a lot of money for that weight class in Japan, definitely.
It'd be great to see him on like a Roman Gonzalez, undercard Tekken. That'd be that just they can, if they could get that on like a New Year's Eve on one of their 2 or 3 cards they have. Ohashi and Tekken, they tend to split it, but if you can get it on the Tekken card, look, can you imagine like a Gonzalez and Estrada rematch and him fighting, maybe the Hiroto on, as one of the, a co-main event. Can you imagine those 2 fights? That'll be my boxing for the entire year. You give me that, and I'll retire a very, very happy man.
Yeah. I mean, but realistically, they can set it up easily with those fighters for the already mentioned reasons. So yeah, sure, let's do it. But here, this sequence is the knockout sequence. So what before playing it again, what I want to say is that, okay, his opponent, sorry, I do not remember his name, the very last opponent, was retreating. It was just right after the last second knockdown happened. And so, again, Rodriguez.
Riviera from Puerto Rico.
Riviera, yeah, thank you. Yeah, him. So Rodriguez again was bouncing on his from front to back foot. He steps in with the jab.
Yeah.
Then here I think, yeah, Rodriguez throws a counter jab, and on that counter jab, of course, Rodriguez moved back out of the range. Then again stacks him again. This time Rodriguez throws a straight right, but again Rodriguez leans over his back foot. Third time, the Puerto Rican throws a jab. Rodriguez retreats, leans over his back foot. Then on another jab, this time he got him used to moving towards his right.
Okay.
On those couple of punches. So at the fourth and final jab, the Puerto Rican opponent threw Riviera. Instead of leaning over his back foot, this time he weaves underneath it and creates the angle for a jab, I think, yeah, and a powerful left, looping left. So these these 10 videos I showed you were all from the last fight, but now I have 10 more clips. I don't know if you want me to show all 10 of them from some of the previous fights.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so let me just see who, because I was analyzing two of his fights, his very last fight, and then let me check the name of the guy. He was probably from from Uzbekistan. I'm not sure. Rauf Agaev. It was at AT&T Stadium. I believe it was on the undercard of Spence versus Mikey Garcia. I think so. So yeah, I broke down those two fights. The difference with this fight is that Agaev was not giving, he was not really giving him the openings with his jab. Agaev, another orthodox opponent, but what he was doing, he was trying to occupy Rodriguez's front hand by feinting jabs, throwing not really powerful throwaway jabs, and looking for the opportunity to counter him with his right hand. And so Rodriguez in this fight, he was not as able of creating angles as he was in his last fight, and he had to do with he had to work a lot more with his jab too. And what he was trying to do was to occupy his opponent's hand and try to bait him into throwing a meaningful jab in order to weave underneath it and create the angle. So at least at the very beginning or first round or two, he was not really able to do it. And yeah, so he was forced in this fight because of it. He was forced to throw a lot of straight jabs and right hands to Agaev's body. But I saw that he was very aware of Agaev's reactions, and that's what I really liked about Rodriguez. So he was able to force the openings with his jab, jabbing to the body. See how Agaev or myself react to his jab to the body. He was trying to kind of counter with his jab or parry with his jabbing hand, while he was moving his right glove. His right glove was placed on the right side of his chin, and every time he would throw a jab, he would move that right hand in front of him to parry a possible straight left upstairs from Rodriguez. So it happened once, it happens twice. This time Agaev tries to counter him with a hook, but look at his right hand again. He moves it again from the right side of his chin. It happens the third time. Agaev does the same thing. Then the fourth time, Rodriguez finds a way for that looping left hand.
Man, that is patience.
Yeah, and a lot of, great awareness.
Yeah. 3 decoys and on the fourth catch him with the left hand. That's what he does. It's you were mentioning it, it's that reconnaissance jab, as I call it, the probing jab
Mhm.
to get the reaction, and then he can readjust his body, tee off that left hand if it's coming up.
Yeah,
It's hard to believe, isn't it? Official 20 years old, I don't know how much amateur he had behind him, but just just natural ability, it looks like, isn't it?
yeah, I would say a lot of he spent a lot of time of learning,
Yeah.
and practicing those drills and
And let's
combining.
not forget his brother as well. Franco is who's a world champion at at 118, is it? I think.
Oh, I'm not so sure about the weight class. Maybe I'm not sure, but anyways, it was um, out of all these bigger fights that we had right
No, no,
after.
it's Superfly. Yeah, his brother got knocked. It was one of the Maloney twins who got
Mhm.
knocked out by his brother. Yeah, for the title.
Yeah, I was about to say out of all the cards we had um, after the Rona thing, I think that that fight, out of all the big fights, it was the best fight. I really enjoyed it, and it was really such a good performance by Franco.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. He did. He give him a beating. Andrew Maloney. Yeah, he got obliterated on
yeah,
top ranked one of the top ranked showcase cards in Australia. So I think his brother is now he's the WBA regular. I think he's
regular. I
uh,
think. I think
yeah,
so.
and he might be mandatory for Roman Gonzalez now. I'm not sure. Could
Oh,
be.
oh, so many possibilities in those 2 or 3 weight classes.
Yeah,
Amazing, man.
yeah,
People are really missing a lot, and I was missing until I started listening to people like you, and checking the videos about light flyweights, super flyweights. Man, all, I'm enjoying boxing all over again. But okay, so here in this sequence, okay, he
mm,
gets an angle on a Gaev, and then again, in order to find the openings, and look, he he just slaps his guard, Agaev's left forearm, and when your opponent is doing this to you, you would think what's coming next is either it's one of those two hands upstairs, but instead he kind of fainted. He faked to to go to his body with a straight left to the body, and he was setting up with what he's doing here. He's in fact setting his next attack, so he parries Agaev's, slaps down his guard with a hook to go to the body with a straight left. Then he retreats, and in the next exchange, the very next exchange, sorry, what he's doing, he does the same thing. Sets the angle, does the same thing, slaps his guard, but continues moving forward with a jab and a straight left upstairs. This is nothing amazing, but however, just shows you that this is what I was telling to you earlier about doing many similar things and throwing similar combos, but just tweaking them a bit for a whole different kind of attack. So
okay.
he's able to think and set up his offense, give you the different looks. Okay, so we have 6 more. Video clips. Let me see what I'm doing here.
We probably just, I think we covered it pretty extensively. Go for maybe one key one, I think, of the six, whichever one you think is different from the others.
Yeah, but the thing is, I cannot really remember what I'm doing here. But
Okay.
yeah, if you want,
You it was too much Chivas Regal at that point, yeah?
exactly. Oh, maybe he's right. He's uppercut, the same uppercut. I'm talking. I was talking when I did my Kyoguchi's videos. So yeah,
Right.
he uses it a lot as well. I mean, he steps to the angle, to the outside angle with his front foot while throwing a jab, leans over his left foot, and then he can finish his attack with this kind of uppercut from the angle, from the blind angle, because it's much different when, I mean, we are all used to boxers throwing the uppercuts straight with their uppercutting hand being straight in front in between their opponent's arms. But here you have, after jabbing, you have your opponent having his high guard up,
Okay.
and you're sideways, and you're shooting your uppercut from underneath his guard, under his forearms, and then you can even go on and follow it up with a straight left from a whole new angle. Because look, in the beginning of the exchange, normally your hands, both of your hands, are aligned with your opponent's hands. So it means from this very position, if you throw a straight left from this position, it would be
Okay.
easier for your opponent to block or parry your straight left, because it is just aligned with his right hand. But while he's getting to this angle and shooting this right uppercut from the angle, it also moves his left hand from that position right in between your two arms, two gloves, with that step to the side, and so when you go back over your rear foot, you shoot your straight left, which is right now in between your opponent's gloves. So yeah, I hope everybody got it.
And you guys should be sending official, a a bottle of Chivas, a reserve in the mail for the efforts and the endeavors, Tremendous stuff, man.
Thank you a lot, man.
I mean, I've picked up a lot more about him, and I know about him. You know, that's
Yeah,
a fighter. Yeah, that's why official. I wanted to do a lot of, the affiliation with you, man, because your videos. I tend to grasp and gauge a hell of a lot more. What it takes to understand the choreography, and a lot of these. I've seen some fight breakdowns. The way they describe it, it's like it's dancing with the stars. Some people, it's just a level of garbage that you wish you wasn't born a human being to having to endure, some of these, you know, when they're calling the fight live on their podcasts, on their shows on YouTube. It's just like, what the hell are they describing? They don't understand the interactions in the ring. It's just they're just jabbering on like they think they know, but they don't. But I don't mind all of that. I mean, it's better. I always find it better to actually watch a fight in retrospect, slowly, whatever, where you can get a second opinion of your own initial opinion, so you can try and you know you can correct any initial thoughts processes, because it's hard to see a film in real time straight away and understand it. It takes a hell of a lot of repeated watching, section by section, and for you to replicate the moves, that's. That's some different level shit there.
Oh, well, thank you again, man. But you know what? In fact, it's not that difficult. It's just the thing is you have to be patient with it. And
Yeah.
for example, I was, you know yourself that I love watching the breakdowns. But sometimes what people are doing when they're, oh, sorry for the background noise, when people are breaking down some films, they're not trying to really understand it. For example, I can be showing you a video of a fighter throwing a jab, but you have to watch that sequence in slow motion and see it maybe a couple of times to try to figure out, if you have enough of patience, what he's trying to achieve with the jab, you know. So that there's a bit of thinking in it. You have to think about it, and if you have boxed in the past, it would be easier. But anyways, you have, when you're watching the video, you really have to, in order to be as precise as possible, you have to put yourself in that fighter's shoes, you know, to try to feel the situation. I don't know how to describe it, but yeah, I mean, people should try. You know, it's easy to call a fight, you know, to do a breakdown, and then just call what you're seeing, what kind of punches are being thrown. But people are lazy to think a bit more about, beside that, what this fighter is trying to achieve with that punch or
Yeah.
combination or move, why he's doing that. So that's the whole difference.
No, that was a great section, very, as we just keep re-emphasizing, that was depth and detail, the two Ds, affiliated to the coup d'etat. That's what we were about. So if there's, the community that are not familiar with the fighter, they've got a head start watching this video, picked up a tremendous amount about his movements. Now they can relay it next time they see him fight, and he's fighting in the, on big time cards on Top Ranks. So yeah, exciting times ahead, official, with him.
Oh, there is always going to be exciting times with in those small weight classes. I mean,
And he's the sort of guy that even if he gets beaten now or beaten in the championship fight, I think he's thick-skinned. It wouldn't even matter to me. It'd just be like a fight. I think he just wants to fight. He's already got a mindset thinking that he is the best. So I like the attitude. Stiff competition out there. I'm just praying the fights can happen. Uh, yeah, they got to happen. If not, then I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna have to watch. I'm gonna have to watch some bullshit like Canelo. But no, that's too much. Well, I might have to watch a Deontay Wilder or the Charlos or something that'd be the equivalent to having an overdose. But no, no, no. I'm hoping that the card in Japan and he's back on there very, very soon, because it'd be good to get him on a Japanese card. I think the fans out there would love him.
yeah, and it would be great if they could bring him there often to fight in Japan. That way
Yeah,
he can create some fan base and grow bigger there.
I think, official, on that tip, I think we've had a good, very good, diverse section on the second transmission, getting a little bit into politics, lawsuits, and upcoming talents as well. We didn't manage to actually talk about any significant fights, which we were going to talk about the Ugas and the Ramos fight, but that was a pretty lackluster fight. Ramos never, he never had any desire to do anything significant in the ring. And Ugas, all right, should have been a comfortable, unanimous points decision victory, but clearly not a shutout. Ramos hurt Ugas 3 times in the fight. Third round as official, we were arguing like mad about the timing of them. Pretty crazy. You know what it was official? I was on a very odd stream where the clock was going in the opposite direction, so I got it.
Oh, man.
So it was 1 minute 12 left in the round as opposed to 1 minute 12 into the round. Do you get it? Yeah. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
so I was giving you bad information. Sorry about that. But yeah, it was a left hand, and Ugas, his knees buckled, and the PBC called it a slip. And Ramos sensed it and was all over him. So Ugas, I don't know about you, official, but he tends to he when he's away, when he's at long distance, he does telegraph that jab, because what he does, he doesn't establish range with it. He flicks out. I worked out the sequence. He does jab, jab. He just flicks it out. Then he throws the right hand, just a motion, and then he marches forwards, steps in with his jab. The trajectory of his lead hand is exactly the same angle. So my point is that if you place the glass of water on his scapula whilst he's throwing punches, the the glass would remain on his scapula, a little bit like Eddie Murphy in The Golden Child when he's trying to navigate those firestorms from the beams just to prove his worth. That's a little bit like Dennis Urgas. His shoulders remain at just an isometric. The angle is exactly the same. It's just square. You could put spirit level on there. That's the way sometimes he throws his punches, and so he's not going to get any knockouts throwing punches like that. He looks a little bit heavy-handed. There's definitely some oomph there, but I think he's very telegraphed in those sequences. If Ramos had any ability, he would have sidestepped him. But if you're walking back, because Ugas is stepping in with the jab, then he's obviously still going to land the jab, because it's purely a horizontal. It's like a battering ram. Think of it in the old war movies you used to see with, two guys at the front and the back, and they're trying to get through the door. The Nazis like on battering ram. There's no vertical movements. That's his jab. That is your Denis Ugas' jab, and he can double the jab, whatever. But Ramos throwing just single punches throughout the fight, what was he gonna do? That, to me, that was just Al Heyman gifting Ugas a world championship. But the judges saw it differently. They had it a split decision, which was pretty crazy. It certainly wasn't that. It was probably a 9 rounds to 3. If you say Ramos hurt Ugas 3 times, give him the rounds. He was effective. The aggression was effective because it slowed Ugas' work rate down, and Ramos pounced on him. And I measured the punches are in a 40-second interval after he hurt Ugas, and Ramos landed more punches in that period than he did before the rounds, which says to me Ugas was clearly hurt, and he was exhaling, getting his breath back, recovering a bit, and Ramos threw more punches. So that is effective aggression. I'm sorry, it is. So by virtue of that, then you got to give the rounds to Ramos. Official.
Yeah, so I watched this fight twice, and I don't even know why I did it, because fight was not very entertaining. For some reason, I don't even know why corruption, but I do like Ugas. For some reason, I like him. But yeah, I mean, doing these things against some higher caliber of opponent would be a different thing. He would not be able to do all of that. Now, I saw in the fight, I saw 4 or 5 close rounds, but to me, it was impossible. So I don't even agree with with 150, 130 scorecards, because me personally, I gave Ramos maybe 2 or 3 rounds, but yeah, out of those 4 or 5 close rounds, I didn't see him seeing Ramos winning all those rounds. And Ugas was doing you know, be, with, with the opponent he had in front of him. He did well doubling on his jab. I think he really outworked him with his jab. Now, just like you said, it's a whole new thing to do it against some other top level opponents. And what I enjoyed in this fight from Ugas was the way he was stepping back and countering with hooks to the body. I think that he invested a lot of time in body punches, and I like them because I think his body punches, body attacks are really nice, especially since he has long hands, so he can make a half of step back, and then counter with hooks. But like you said, he had an opponent in front of him who was just throwing single punches and was really easy to read. So there was no problem for Ugas to make half a step back and make him miss. And that's exactly how he was outlanding him with jabs, because he was making those steps, half of steps back and landing on him. But that's it about that
Yeah,
fight.
when you're facing a fighter who throws single punches, then all Ugas has to do is just throw double jabs, double body shots. What he does with his counter punching is that when the opponent orthodox throws a left, he'll counter their left with his own left, which is nice. When they throw a right, he steps back and he counters with his own right. Sometimes he changes it. He counters with a right to the body. He actually gets underneath their right hand and he counters to the body. And sometimes he can double a counter double to the body. So there are some very good counter punching skills there. But the key for me is that if you've got to force Ugas, you've got to force him to come forward. And if you do that, then I think you've got a great chance because, as I mentioned, his distance management is crazy because he doesn't use his footwork to negate that distance. He'll just lunge forward with that jab. So he doesn't even throw a long raking jab, official, with the height and reach he has. This very bizarre strategy he has. And that is just, for me, is just so telegraphed. All you've got to do is step to the side and then hit him with a murk him. If you're a southpaw, murk him with a left hand. With an orthodox fighter, somebody like a Terence Crawford would just, with his footwork, he would sidestep that. He would see it coming, and he would tag him up. Not saying who would win the fight, but Crawford could definitely counter punch that. He's quick enough to do it. He has that cat reflexes at that range. The way he did it with Amir Khan straight out the jump, that same motion he'd do to Ugas, I can see it. Good fighter, pretty damn good fighter. I think he wants to fight everybody, and out of economics, he has to. He's a Cuban based in Miami, so he's not fighting in Miami. He's fighting, the Barclays and all of these Fox cards, etc. So he has to fight. He's got doesn't have much of a following. Cubans are never going to be popular in the United States, given the embargoes that both of the countries have had for a number of years since the Cuban Missile Crisis. So yeah, he'll get in the ring. I'm sure he'll fight anybody, and he gets vicious as well. He starts talking to the opponents, and he loves to trade as well. But he hasn't got the chin. Ramos showed in the fight. I don't think it's wise for him to be courting opponents to start exchanging. I think he's going to get knocked out if he does that. I think he is better boxing as the Cubans are. Dorticos may be the only exception because that guy can fight and punch. But I don't know. I don't know whether he can convert the WBA regular to a fully fledged world championship. Maybe, but I can't see Al Heyman putting the belts on him. He's got no following. He's not going to sell out any pay-per-views. So, he's giving him the regular. He's technically a world champion. They count it. The WBA, the regular does have a lot of credence because the super belts, you don't have any mandatory status for them. It's the regular that do. So it is whether you like it or not, it's probably it's probably even more credible than the super belt, believe it or not. But people look at it as an obsolete it's just sort of a downgrade, like an alphabet. belt, but you know, Manny Pacquiao, who holds the super, Manny's not going to fight Ugas. Let's face it. So I don't know what he does officially. You know, maybe he just goes into some holding pattern. No idea, but uh, I'm not going to be staying up late watching the dramas. I'll catch it on some later on.
Yeah, I haven't thought about it myself, to be honest with you. I haven't really given a thought about Ugas's future. But one thing, yeah, I think I figured out, thanks to you, why I do enjoy it.
Yeah.
I enjoy Ugas as a fighter because, yeah, despite what this fight showed us about his chin, he likes to fight. Now the other thing is that it maybe not be the wisest the wise decision for him, but I like that competitive spirit and trying to at least put up a good show at the best of his abilities. So
Yeah.
and
He'll get the winner of Spence and Danny Garcia because it allows Al Heyman to keep all of the belts in house. He's been doing a round robin with the PBC profit maximization on the pay-per-view. Here's another guy that they can do it with as well. Ugas next, so yeah, I can see him fighting Danny or an Errol Spence possibly sometime soonish. So it'll be on pay-per-view. So you know, if it gives him a chance to make some money as well, fair enough. You know, Cubans. You know, I do understand that the difficulty they have. I understand Cuba very well. I'm a student of history, so you know, the defectees, and you know, he's probably made a tremendous amount of sacrifices. So fair enough. You know, if you can, you know, make some money. You know, he's got his wife and that. You know, raise his children in Miami as well. So fair enough. So um, yeah, I think that'll pretty much cover the uh, the topics in the second transmission official. It's probably gone on a lot longer than I was sort of anticipating, but you know, so be it. Um, I want to thank all of the loyal soldiers, the foot soldiers that have persevered with us right throughout up until now. You know, big, big thank you to feel. You know, we feel your support as well, my friend. Thank you. You know.
absolutely.
Triple JJJ, you know, tremendous amount of respect for him. B Space as well, my man. You know, great guy. You know, the Shepherd of Sons. I saw my brother Sinamasia from the Land of the Rising Sun, you know, who joined us as well. You know, it's a crazy time for him, but you know, he tuned in as well. So massive thank you to Sin. You know, great guy. A real Jimmy. Respect to you as well, my friend. Thank you for all of the comments and interaction with all of the Shepherd of Sons. Duck was here and he's joined us this week. So big thank you to my man Duck as well. Who else have we got? St. Brit was there as well. Big respect to you. Thank you as well. Joining in.
John Gonzalez,
Um,
also big up to him.
yeah, my man John Gonzalez, man, you know, he's not out, you know, abducting and dissecting bodies, man. He's joining us. So respect to John, man. Massive opportunity cost, but he stayed with us, you know, hopefully crime free, you know, hopefully immersed, maybe rehabilitated, changed his ways. And L Dog as well. L Dog, I hope he was doing the haka dance when the opening credits were playing, you know, from,
Yeah, I'll shout out.
from New Zealand. So decent guy as well to chat with. So there's, and all the guys that joined before, you know, everybody's got different responsibilities, you know, blue collar sports. Who else we got? We got Mexican fight fan, you know, who might have been I don't know, a little bit of an eye opener him on the Canelo section, but there was no animosity or hate. You know, we're just trying to lay down the facts as they are, that people are either impervious to or just have a stubbornness or just a Canelito fanboys, just got their got their shades on and they just don't give a fuck. So we're we're trying to read in between the lines and portray an accurate, objective position. There's nothing subjective there. You can look at all of the facts, intangible, unrivaled. Mark from Unrivaled as well. Big, massive thank you to him. Big supporter of the channel. He's got a tremendous channel himself. 8 Scenes. He's also got a brilliant channel as well. Real
Shout out
Johnny.
to Nordic Warrior as well.
I missed him. Okay. Yeah, shout out to Nordic Warrior as well. Shout out to Apology Man. Recognize the Matrix wherever he is. Carnival. Hope to link up with you soon at some point. Yeah, everybody. Just if I've forgotten everybody, Madman as well. Buddy, I cannot forget Buddy Aces. Used to chat a hell of a lot with him on Discord as well. Hope you're well, my friend. Box, Overhand, Diego Bandito. Gotta give a big shout out to him as well. Over in the Philippines.
Yeah,
Yes, big supporter of the channel as well. Very knowledgeable guy as well. Really nice guy. Azzy as well. Quags, big shout out to him as well. Really good guy as well. Knowledgeable guy. Big supporter of our respective works as well. Yeah, there's just so many officials. It's hard sometimes to remember. Adam as well. Big shout out to him. Adam Moore. He's not sure if there's anybody else you can think of official, but I like to acknowledge everyone if we can. Why not?
Oh yeah, sure. Oh, I don't know.
Boxing Monster as well.
True Schools, sorry, BT from True School Sports, and also Pound for Pound Boxing Report.
Oh yeah, I cannot forget. Yeah, I cannot forget them. Yeah, shout out to Michael, the host, Gail, Daniel, Jacob. Shout out to Bo as well from Truth and Facts at Free Kings Boxing and 2K Prodigy as well. Yeah, as I said, definitely go to their website for boxing news. Free Kings Boxing, free KINGS Boxing. Great interviews. First-hand reporting. They're at the fights as well. Those guys are doing a tremendous job. So go and support their website. Look at their content. Look at the news they're breaking out as well. It's nothing subscription based. It's just an amazing repository for boxing information. Great fights. They cover all women's boxing, everything. So yeah.
Okay, so I guess it would be it. So I mean, yeah, we gave shoutouts to everybody and we talked about all the subjects we wanted to cover.
Yeah.
So that's a bit for tonight, for this week.
Yeah, that'll be it. So once again, thank you to everybody who joined us for the live transmission. The show's available there on YouTube. If you didn't catch the whole show, you can go back. In future, we're going to get the podcast up on some RSS feeds. Hopefully, get it on the various podcasts that are out there official. Maybe on Google Play and Amazon Pod and maybe Spotify. But there's a lot of technological work that's going on behind the scenes at the moment. So eventually, we'll get round to that. We can backdate the pods and get them up on there as well. So get it distributed to a much larger community, get it a lot more accessible as well for people to listen to, or even find us and find some new, amazing boxing content. So yeah, thank you to everybody. That's the coup d'etat of boxing. Big thank you to Official Scorecard. As always, my brother, amazing work on covering all of the fights, the breakdowns as well, everything, you know, all the technical, all the work you do behind the scenes as well, and the testing and the maintaining the site as well. So massive respect to you.
No problem. It's a pleasure. Thank you too, bro.
And we'll be back same time, same place next week. I'm not too sure what the flight schedule is for the ensuing period from now until next week, but I'm sure there'll be something we can find. You know, I've got one or two ideas in mind regarding some fighters we can break down, look at their career resumes. So if there's anything specific that you guys want to cover as well, you know, you can always hit us up. You know where we are. We're on Discord. By all means, you can fire off some requests, and you know, we'll review them, see whether it's within our parameters to do it on time as well. Because we, officially and myself, we're on very. If people realize the sort of the shifts we're in, you know, I'm traveling between countries sometimes, you know, between work and family. So my weeks are unbelievable, you know. So trying to manage everything is difficult, but we'll try. And you know, the podcast is for the people, so we'll try and facilitate any reasonable requests as well.
And by the way, if you don't mind, guys, hit the like button, and if you're new, please subscribe, and also turn the notifications on so you're able to get our live streams on the time and watch us live. So thank you again for being with us one more time.
Big shout out to King Butcher as well, and BDA boxing as well. You know.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Friends for a number of years as well. So, and everybody within that community as well. All right, official. That'll do it, man. Transmission over, people. Respect.